Imagine living in a world where no one had ever flown in a machine. The skies belonged only to birds, and the idea of a human soaring through the air seemed impossible. Most people believed that powered flight would remain a fantasy forever. Yet two ordinary brothers, working in a small bicycle shop with no university degrees and very little money, refused to accept that impossible meant unattainable. Their names were Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright. Together, they achieved one of humanity's greatest milestones, the first successful powered, controlled, and sustained flight. Their achievement forever changed transportation, exploration, warfare, and the way people connected across the world. But before they made history, they were simply two curious boys with an extraordinary imagination. The story begins in the American state of Indiana. Wilbur Wright was born on April 16, 1867, while his younger brother Orville was born on August 19, 1871. They grew up in a family that valued learning and encouraged curiosity. Their father, Milton Wright, was a bishop who often traveled across the country. Whenever he returned home, he brought books, magazines, and fascinating gifts for his children. One gift would change history forever. One day, Milton Wright brought home a small flying toy made of paper, bamboo, and cork. It was powered by a twisted rubber band that spun two tiny propellers. The toy was based on a design created by French aviation pioneer Alphonse Pénaud. When the brothers launched the little helicopter into the air, they watched in amazement as it climbed toward the ceiling. It stayed airborne for only a few moments before drifting back to the floor, but those few seconds planted a powerful idea in their minds. Instead of forgetting the toy after it broke, Wilbur and Orville tried to build copies themselves. Their versions never worked as well, but they discovered something even more valuable: solving problems through experimentation. As they grew older, their curiosity never faded. Unlike many famous inventors, neither brother attended college. Wilbur had planned to continue his education, but a serious hockey accident injured his face and disrupted his future plans. During his recovery, he spent years reading books and studying science, engineering, mathematics, and mechanics on his own. Meanwhile, Orville showed an early talent for building things. Even as a teenager, he loved machines, tools, and printing presses. Before reaching adulthood, he started his own small printing business, designing and building much of the equipment himself. The brothers worked together naturally. Wilbur was quiet, thoughtful, and analytical. He carefully considered every detail before making a decision. Orville was energetic, creative, and eager to experiment with new ideas. Their personalities balanced each other perfectly. In 1892, they opened a bicycle sales and repair shop in Dayton. At first glance, repairing bicycles seemed completely unrelated to aviation. Yet the bicycle business became the perfect training ground for the future inventors of the airplane. Bicycles were among the most advanced machines of their time. They required lightweight construction, precise engineering, balance, steering, and careful craftsmanship. Every day, the brothers learned how moving parts work together. They designed stronger frames, improved wheels, repaired gears, and built custom bicycles. Most importantly, the business gave them financial independence. They could now fund their own experiments without relying on wealthy investors or government support. During the late 19th century, many inventors dreamed of building flying machines. Newspapers regularly reported new attempts to conquer the skies, but nearly every experiment ended in failure. One inventor especially caught the brothers' attention: Otto Lilienthal. Lilienthal had successfully completed thousands of glider flights in Germany. Instead of merely imagining flight, he tested his ideas in the real world. His courage inspired inventors across the globe. Then tragedy struck. In 1896, Lilienthal crashed during one of his flights and died from his injuries. His final reported words were, "Sacrifices must be made." Many people saw his death as proof that human flight was impossible. The Wright brothers saw something entirely different. They believed Lilienthal had come remarkably close to success. Instead of abandoning his dream, they decided to continue the work he had begun. Soon after, They began reading everything they could find about flight. They studied the writings of George Cayley, often called the father of aeronautics. They examined the experiments of Octave Chanute, whose books gathered decades of aviation research into one place. Night after night, the brothers filled notebooks with calculations, sketches, and observations. They debated ideas, challenged assumptions, and imagined how a flying machine might actually work. Many inventors focused only on building a powerful engine. The Wright brothers believed the Rail challenge was different. They realized that even if someone built an engine capable of lifting an aircraft into the air, the machine would still crash unless the pilot could control it. Birds constantly adjusted the angles of their wings to stay balanced in changing winds. What if an airplane could do the same? That simple question became the foundation of their life's work. The brothers spent hours watching birds glide above the fields around Dayton. They noticed how birds tilted one wing higher than the other while turning. Instead of steering like a boat, birds controlled their balance through subtle movements. One afternoon, while observing birds in flight, Wilbur had a breakthrough. He imagined twisting the ends of an airplane's wings slightly in opposite directions. One wing would produce more lift while the other produced less, allowing the aircraft to roll smoothly into a turn. Today, this concept is known as wing warping, and it became one of the most important breakthroughs in aviation history. But ideas alone were not enough. The brothers needed a place where strong, steady winds would allow them to test gliders safely. After studying weather reports from across the United States, they found a remote location on the coast of North Carolina called Kitty Hawk. The area offered powerful ocean winds, soft sand for landings, and wide open spaces with very few people. It was the perfect outdoor laboratory. In the fall of 1900, Wilbur packed their carefully designed glider and boarded a train for Kitty Hawk, where one of history's greatest adventures was about to begin. The brothers had no guarantee of success. They had no wealthy sponsors. No famous scientists stood behind them. Most of the world believed their dream was impossible. But with determination, patience, and an unshakable belief in careful experimentation, the Wright brothers were ready to challenge the impossible. Little did they know that the winds waiting for them on the lonely sand dunes of Kitty Hawk would soon carry not only a glider, but the future of humanity. The winds of Kitty Hawk were stronger than anything Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright had ever experienced. Endless sand dunes stretched toward the Atlantic Ocean, and there were very few people living nearby. It was isolated, harsh, and unpredictable, but to the Wright brothers, it was the perfect laboratory. In the autumn of 1900, they assembled their first full-sized glider. Excitement filled the air as they prepared for the first test. Years of reading, studying, and planning had led to this moment. Their glider looked impressive, with long wings covered in tightly stretched fabric. It included one of their most important innovations, wing warping, a system that allowed the pilot to twist the wings and control the aircraft while turning. The first flights were encouraging but disappointing. Sometimes the glider lifted into the air for only a few seconds before settling back to the sand. At other times, it failed to produce enough lift to carry the pilot as expected. The machine simply wasn't performing according to the calculations published by earlier aviation researchers. The Wright brothers blamed the data. That decision changed aviation forever. Instead of assuming they had made mistakes, they questioned whether the scientific information everyone relied on was actually correct. When they returned home to Dayton, they carefully reviewed every observation they had recorded. They compared their own measurements with published research and discovered major differences. Rather than giving up, they built a second glider for the 1901 season. It was larger, stronger, and designed to generate more lift. Confident that the improvements would solve their problems, they returned once again to Kitty Hawk. But the results were even more frustrating. The larger glider still failed to perform as expected. Strong winds made controlling the aircraft difficult, and the lift remained far below what existing formulas predicted. At one point, Wilbur became deeply discouraged. After weeks of exhausting work, he reportedly wondered whether humans might not achieve practical flight for another 50 years. For most people, That would have been the end of the dream. For the Wright brothers, it became the beginning of a completely new approach. They realized they could no longer trust anyone else's numbers. If they wanted accurate information, they would have to create it themselves. Back in Dayton, they transformed a corner of their bicycle shop into one of the world's first true aeronautical research laboratories. Their greatest invention wasn't an airplane. It was a wooden box. Inside that box was a carefully designed wind tunnel. Although it appeared simple, it became one of the most important scientific tools in aviation history. The brothers placed small model wings inside the tunnel while a fan forced air through it. They carefully measured how different wing shapes behaved under controlled conditions. For months, they tested hundreds of tiny wing designs. Some wings were wide, others were narrow, some had curved surfaces, others were nearly flat. Every experiment was recorded with incredible precision. Unlike many inventors who relied on guesswork, the Wright brothers trusted only evidence. Night after night, they analyzed numbers, compared results, and searched for patterns. Eventually, they realized that much of the accepted aerodynamic data was wrong. Their own measurements produced far more accurate calculations for lift and drag. This discovery gave them something no other aviation pioneer possessed: reliable scientific data. Armed with this new knowledge, they built another glider for 1902. This aircraft was completely different from its predecessors. The wings were redesigned using the new wind tunnel data. The structure was lighter. The controls were more precise. Most importantly, they added a movable rear rudder that worked together with wing warping. This solved one of aviation's biggest problems. Earlier gliders often entered dangerous spins while turning. The Wright brothers discovered that by coordinating the rudder with wing warping, the aircraft could make smooth, controlled turns. Today, every airplane still uses this basic principle. When they returned to Kitty Hawk in 1902, everything changed. The new glider flew beautifully. Flight after flight, the brothers gained confidence. Instead of brief hops, they made long, graceful glides over the sand dunes. Sometimes they remained in the air for nearly half a minute. They completed hundreds of successful flights. For the first time in history, humans were not simply gliding. They were controlling an aircraft in all three axes: rolling, pitching, and yawing. This breakthrough solved the greatest challenge of aviation. The airplane could now be controlled, but one enormous obstacle remained: power. A glider could only stay airborne after launching from a hill or in a strong wind. To change the world, they needed an engine that was powerful enough to lift the aircraft while remaining light enough for flight. They searched for manufacturers capable of building such an engine. Every company they contacted gave the same answer: it couldn't be done. Existing automobile engines were simply too heavy. Instead of accepting defeat, the brothers followed the same philosophy that had guided every step of their journey. If no one could build the engine they needed, they would build it themselves. Working alongside their trusted mechanic, Charlie Taylor, they began designing a completely new engine. Taylor had remarkable mechanical skills. Using basic machine tools, he carved engine parts from solid blocks of aluminum, an advanced choice at a time when most engines were made from much heavier iron. Within only 6 weeks, the team completed a 4-cylinder gasoline engine. It produced about 12 horsepower while remaining light enough for flight. It wasn't powerful by modern standards, but it was exactly what the brothers needed. Next came another challenge that no one had solved before: propellers. Most people assumed airplane propellers should function like ship propellers moving through water. The Wright brothers disagreed. They realized a propeller was actually a rotating wing. Using mathematics and countless calculations, they designed long wooden propellers with carefully shaped blades that generated remarkable efficiency. They completed hundreds of successful flights. For the first time in history, humans were not simply gliding. They were controlling an aircraft in all three axes: rolling, pitching, and yawing. This breakthrough solved the greatest challenge of aviation. The airplane could now be controlled, but one enormous obstacle remained: power. A glider could only stay airborne after launching from a hill or in a strong wind. To change the world, They needed an engine that was powerful enough to lift the aircraft while remaining light enough for flight. They searched for manufacturers capable of building such an engine. Every company they contacted gave the same answer. It couldn't be done. Existing automobile engines were simply too heavy. Instead of accepting defeat, the brothers followed the same philosophy that had guided every step of their journey. If no one could build the engine they needed, they would build it themselves. Working alongside their trusted mechanic, Charlie Taylor, they began designing a completely new engine. Taylor had remarkable mechanical skills. Using basic machine tools, he carved engine parts from solid blocks of aluminum, an advanced choice at a time when most engines were made from much heavier iron. Within only 6 weeks, the team completed a 4-cylinder gasoline engine. It produced about 12 horsepower while remaining light enough for flight. It wasn't powerful by modern standards, but it was exactly what the brothers needed. Next came another challenge that no one had solved before: propellers. Most people assumed airplane propellers should function like ship propellers moving through water. The Wright brothers disagreed. They realized a propeller was actually a rotating wing. Using mathematics and countless calculations, they designed long wooden propellers with carefully shaped blades that generated remarkable efficiency. Even today, aviation engineers admire how advanced their propeller design was. By the summer of 1903, nearly every piece of the puzzle had come together. They had master control. They had reliable aerodynamic data. They had a lightweight engine. They had efficient propellers. Now, they needed to combine everything into a single machine. Piece by piece, they assembled their newest creation. The aircraft stretched more than 40 feet from wingtip to wingtip. Its wooden frame was covered with tightly woven fabric. Chains connected the engine to the twin propellers. The pilot would lie flat on the lower wing to reduce air resistance. The brothers called it simply the Flyer. In September 1903, they shipped the aircraft once again to Kitty Hawk. The familiar winds greeted them as they unpacked the world's first practical powered airplane. But nature had one final challenge waiting. Powerful storms swept across the dunes. High winds delayed testing for days. Every morning they hoped for better weather. Every evening they waited. Weeks passed. The brothers knew history was close. Yet history refused to arrive on schedule. Still, they remained patient. Because after years of failure, disappointment, rebuilding, and relentless experimentation, they understood one lesson better than anyone else. Great achievements are not created in a single moment. They are built through thousands of small improvements that no one else is willing to make. Soon, the weather would clear. The engine would roar to life. And the quiet sands of Kitty Hawk would witness a moment that would forever change the course of human civilization. By December 1903, every piece of the puzzle was finally in place. After years of study, thousands of calculations, hundreds of glider experiments, and countless setbacks, Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright stood on the windswept sands of Kitty Hawk, ready to attempt something no human had ever accomplished before. The weather had finally improved after days of powerful winds and storms. The cold air swept across the dunes, but the brothers knew this might be their best opportunity. Before sunrise on December 17, 1903, they carried the Flyer from its shed and placed it on a 60-foot wooden launching rail. There were no cheering crowds, no newspaper reporters, and no famous scientists waiting to witness history. Only 5 local men had come out. None of them realized they were about to witness one of the greatest moments in human history. The brothers flipped a coin to decide who would make the first attempt. Wilbur had won an earlier toss, but his first takeoff a few days before had ended in a stall that damaged the aircraft slightly. This time, it was Orville's turn. He climbed onto the lower wing, lying flat beside the engine to reduce air resistance. Wilbur held one wingtip steady as the engine roared to life. The twin wooden propellers began spinning faster and faster. The Flyer shook violently as it gained speed along the wooden rail. Then something extraordinary happened. For the first time in history, a powered aircraft carrying a human pilot lifted itself into the air under its own power, remained under the pilot's control, and landed safely. The first flight lasted only 12 seconds. The flyer traveled 120 feet, about 37 meters. By today's standards, that distance seems incredibly short. Many people can run farther in 12 seconds. But those 12 seconds changed the future forever. Humanity had entered the age of powered flight. The brothers didn't stop after the first success. They carried the flyer back to the starting rail and prepared for another attempt. Wilbur completed the second flight. Then Orville flew again. With each attempt, they learned more about controlling the aircraft. Finally, Wilbur climbed aboard for the fourth flight of the day. The flyer stayed airborne for 59 seconds and covered approximately 852 feet, more than 260 meters. It was a remarkable improvement over the first attempt. For nearly a full minute, a man controlled a powered flying machine through the sky. Moments after landing, however, a powerful gust of wind flipped the flyer across the sand. The aircraft was badly damaged. It would never fly again. Ironically, the machine that changed history completed only 4 successful flights. The brothers packed their equipment and returned home to Dayton. They believed the world would immediately celebrate their achievement. Instead, almost nobody believed them. Many newspapers ignored the story completely. Others published inaccurate reports or dismissed the flights as exaggerations. Some editors argued that if humans truly could fly, surely someone more famous than 2 bicycle mechanics would have accomplished it first. The Wright brothers refused to argue. Instead of seeking publicity, they continued improving their aircraft. Over the next several years, they built newer, stronger, and more reliable airplanes. In 1904 and 1905, they returned to a field near Dayton known as Huffman Prairie. There, they achieved something even more important than the first flight. They learned how to stay in the air for extended periods. They flew complete circles. They performed controlled turns. They landed safely. They took off again. Their airplane was no longer just an experiment. It had become a practical flying machine. Still, much of the world remained skeptical. Finally, in 1908, everything changed. Wilbur traveled to France to demonstrate the flyer before large crowds. At first, many Europeans laughed. Some newspapers mocked the American inventors before they even took off. Then Wilbur climbed into the airplane. Minutes later, the crowd stood in complete silence. He flew graceful circles high above the field, banking smoothly through turns and remaining airborne far longer than anyone thought possible. When he landed, the spectators erupted into applause. Within days, newspapers across Europe called the Wright brothers the true pioneers of powered flight. Meanwhile, Orville conducted demonstrations in the United States for the military. Government officials watched in amazement as the airplane performed exactly as promised. The impossible had become reality. Soon, governments around the world began purchasing airplanes. Inventors rushed to improve aviation technology. An entirely new industry was born. Yet airplanes were already crossing oceans, carrying passengers around the globe, and transforming modern civilization. Today, every airplane, from as small as training aircraft to the largest passenger jet, owes something to the discoveries of the Wright brothers. Their understanding of lift, control, propeller design, and flight testing became the foundation of modern aviation. Millions of people fly every single day. Vacations that once required months now take hours. Families separated by oceans can reunite in a single day. Emergency medical supplies reach disaster zones quickly. Astronauts, fighter pilots, cargo crews, and airline captains all follow a path that began with 2 brothers who refused to believe that the sky was out of reach. The Wright brothers proved that extraordinary achievements do not always come from famous universities, wealthy corporations, or powerful governments. Sometimes, history is changed by ordinary people with extraordinary determination. Their greatest invention was not simply an airplane. It was a way of thinking. They questioned accepted knowledge. They tested every idea. They learned from every failure. And they never stopped improving. More than a century later, every airplane lifting into the sky carries a small piece of their dream. Every takeoff is a reminder of two bicycle mechanics who dared to challenge the impossible. And every flight across the clouds tells the same timeless story. The dream of Wilbur and Orville Wright never truly ended. It simply took wing.